Hello, lovelies, and welcome to another episode of Making Stories Knit With. I'm Annalisa, your host for today and always. And I'm so happy that you're joining us again. I hope you're all well. You have your cup of tea or coffee, which is my beverage of choice. You're knitting and are ready for a cozy hour with my wonderful guest, Crystal Hiatt. Welcome, Crystal. I'm so glad that you're joining me today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So, everyone who doesn't know Crystal is a knitwear designer who's designed a beautiful cardigan for issue 4 for us. It's called Unity, and we'll dive all into the special things about the designer in a little while. She's also written a beautiful essay on body positivity and size inclusivity, and she's a huge advocate for size inclusive knitwear design. So those are all things that we're going to be talking about today. Crystal, over to you. What can you introduce yourself in a few words? I've already said a lot, haven't I? I'm always
You
trying
have.
to not do this, and then I inevitably end up doing half of the introduction that I don't want to do, but that I want the guests to do.
Yeah, that is all right. There's always more to say.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Crystal Hiatt. You can often find me under my brand name that I use for all of my knitwear design, which is Millie's Knit Designs. And it's just really exciting to have been a part of the Making Stories issue 4. It seems like it was a long time coming because Annalisa was heading into maternity leave last year when we were all working on these. So
I
samples and
was.
all that, was finished like a year ago. And
Yeah.
finally it came to life. So it's been pretty exciting and very special and just great to be a part of it. And I love to design. I love knitting as a whole, and then the designing just uh, kind of just evolved from that in a way, and wanted to make things that I was looking for that I couldn't find either in patterns that existed already or even in fast fashion. So that's where
Mm,
I decided, I'm going to take the little leap of faith and see if I can do this myself too.
love it. I love hearing how people came to knitwear design and what their story behind it is. I think there are so many different ways of approaching it and, getting to do knitwear design either as your full-time profession or as part of your work. So thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
Everyone, if you have any questions at any point in time, you can just pop them in the comment box and in the live chat down below. They will show up, hopefully. So if you've been tuning in for the last few weeks, you know that this has kind of been hit and miss with the YouTube live studio undergoing some changes. But it looks as if it's working fine right now. Otherwise, there's always the option to revert back to lovely Claire and WhatsApp. Um, so, as I already said, Crystal, you've designed a beautiful cardigan Unity for issue 4, which I have as a sample. So I'm just going to try and show it, but because the way that my camera setup is working, we realized the other day when I was talking to Marina that it's not really the best to showcase the beautiful samples. So I'm just going to quickly show you everyone who's viewing the beautiful sample, and then we'll take a look at the pattern photos and talk a little bit more about the design, because that is actually one of the designs that, where I looked at issue 4 and I was like, I really, really, really want this in my wardrobe, because I think, I can't find it anymore. I think it's such a great piece, especially for this time of the year. There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's one of those two, like Annalise, like you said, I have been wanting something like this in my
mm,
wardrobe. And there's things available, but I wasn't finding exactly the right type of fit and style. And so when I put this original submission together for you all, it showcased what I was looking for. And it was really that transition piece, something that gets you from summer to
Yeah.
fall to winter, or from winter to spring, or the cool spring nights to summer. And it's a great layering piece. I'm all about layers. You know, I
Yes.
tend to either run really hot or really cold. So I'm constantly have cowls, shawls, cardigans, whatever with me, so that I can, change things around as needed depending on the temps. And on a Sunday or a Saturday morning, my most favorite thing to do is to roll out of bed, make a cup of coffee, throw on some type of wrap or cardigan over my pajamas, and curl up on the couch with my knitting, my
Oh,
coffee, and then I'm a news junkie. So that's my 7
sounds like
a.m.s on the weekends. It's just, my favorite thing to do. And this, whenever I get it back, will be the one thing that I'll probably start to wear all the
love
time.
it. You'll notice if I
So
keep it, won't you?
yeah, exactly. Well, it took a while to get it to you too. It was kind of a funny story.
Yeah.
It ended up in Germany and sat there for a month, and then it found its way back to me. Um, so thankfully, Hannah-Lisa's husband was, I think, yeah, it was your husband, was
Yeah.
coming to the States during the holidays, and he um, carefully carried it back with him, which was
He
really
carried it
kind.
back with him. And it was so funny because David, so for everyone who doesn't know, David's my husband, and he's working for a US space company. And he used to travel to the States quite often. Now, not anymore, both because we have a little one and also because Corona. But
Yeah.
he was in San Francisco for a conference before Christmas. And he was only there for a few days, and he he flew with hand luggage and had packed all of the things. And then I was like, dude, you need to leave some space. Like there's something traveling back with you. And he ended up wearing, I think, like 2 jackets so that he could fit the cardigan in it. Because there were also quite a few Christmas presents from his colleagues for our little one. So he was like, how am I going to make everything fit? It traveled back safely in time for our photo shoot. And I think
Yes.
this is also, this is just such a nice, I hope this shows up. I think this is such a nice example of how you can actually layer it. And I was so happy because I usually don't make a lot of plans for sort of how to actually style the pieces when we do a photo shoot. What I prefer doing is asking our models to bring their favorite clothes and, in neutral colors so that they can provide a nice background for the knitwear. But I want the models to feel extremely comfortable. And it was so great because Lena, our beautiful model for issue 4, she came to the set wearing, like a pair of gray jeans and boots and like a black long sleeve. And she just threw the cardigan over it because she grabbed it and she's like, I want to wear this. I'm like, yep, you go ahead. And
Yeah.
I think it looks perfect.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
agree.
I love it. Can you walk us
Yeah.
through the design? So it's a top-down raglan cardigan, right?
Yeah, it's a top down, but right. You begin though with the collar. So you start with the left side of the collar and then join with the right side of the collar on the back, and you can kind of see where those two pieces join right in the center of the neck on the back. And you just work part of the collar, and then you go through and you pick up those back stitches. And for the whole, it's a raglan style top down. And as you work back and forth, going through the increases in that, you also continue to work that shawl collar the whole way. So the nice thing is when you're finished, you have a full sweater. You don't have
Yeah.
to go back and pick up stitches and figure out that exact stitch count, so you don't have any buckling or puckering there. And then there's also pockets worked into the bottom too, which I'm
Let
a
me see if
huge
I can show
fan
you
of
the pockets.
pockets. I always need a place to put my hands or to drop something easily. So those are worked in line too with the sweater, and then the ribbing is also included there, and then also at the bottom of the hem too. And when you pick up your sleeves in the end, you do quite a bit of increases at the raglan in order to get that oversized fit. There's not much to pick up at the very end to finish the sleeve, and then add that little texture rib on the end as well.
I just love this so much. I think like this is why I really, really, really want to have this in my wardrobe, and I'm sad, but you'll notice if I just keep it.
Yeah, if it
It's just
doesn't
not
come
enough.
home, that's fine. I'll make another one.
No, it's fine. I'll make one. But I think it's one of those things that has so many thoughtful details, both in the knitting and then also when you wear it. It just makes it so special. Like, one, you had me at you're not picking up any stitches. There's nothing that I hate more, and I love knitting, than picking up stitches, especially for a button band. I understand why it's done. I've just designed something where you also do it. But it's a lot of work. You're kind of done with your knitting and you're like, yay, this is great. You know, you've maybe already done the sleeves and you're like, just the button band. And the button band is a whole nother sweater.
Right.
So I think this is one of the things where I'm like, this is great because you just knit this as you go, and it also just looks so good with the zigzag stitch that you chose, you know, for the pockets and the shawl collar. I hope it shows up well, and the ribbing, you know, just those vertical lines, they look so good. And the other thing that I love, and I think Claire and we talked about this quite a bit when we had our first launch video where we showed the samples, are the pockets. I mean, they're not patch pockets. So as you said, you're working them, or you're working part of them when you're knitting the body. So they're sitting, you know, like the lining is kind of the body here. And more often than not, I find that knitted pockets don't have enough structure. They just kind of flap out, and they're not, you know, you can't really put anything in there because it will fall out, and they kind of look weird. And these are perfect. Like, they don't do any of what I just said. And I think part is because you have that additional structure because of the zigzag fabric, but they're also just placed really smartly. I find that they look so well placed, and they're the perfect size. A tiny ball of yarn for a sock project, or, you know, for your hands or a wallet or anything.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh. How did you like the yarn? So it's knit with Erica Knight British Blue 100, which is a yarn that I hadn't worked before. Like, I hadn't worked with before. So I was really intrigued to see how it's knitted up. How did you like it?
I loved it. I had never used it before either, and it's not something you can get readily here in the US. There are some distributors and local yarn shops that do carry the yarn, but I loved it. It was so dreamy. It was like butter in your hands. My mom would constantly comment on how soft it was when she would fill my sample, and while you were knitting with it, it just kind of built up its own halo, and that was just super soft. It would almost feel like, you know, like a little hint of cashmere or mohair added to it, when it really wasn't. It's just the sheep I think it's a BFL. So it was just whatever they use, wherever she raised her sheep for that yarn is just absolutely gorgeous. So I actually was able to get another sweater quantity from the local yarn distributor here in the States. So I do have more to make another one, because I was like, I need to have another color of this. So someday I'll get started on that. But yeah, it was beautiful. I wish.
I'm so glad to hear that you liked it, because like Marina, our tech editor, says about this yarn that it's one of the hidden treasures.
Yeah.
There's not that many, designs put out with it now. And Ericanite has changed, I don't think ownership, but distributorship, at least for Europe, maybe about a year ago. So I'm hoping that it will make its way into more people's hands, because it's a really, really, really good yarn. It's also, at least in Europe, it's not crazily expensive, which I always appreciate. It's a 100% wool yarn, and it comes in a range of colors that, this is I think this is called Clarissa, that color. It's sort of a beigey taupe kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of really other really beautiful colors available as well.
There are. And the other thing too is it has beautiful stitch definition. So even with that halo, you get great stitch definition. So it would be great for other types of products or projects, like even color work, of course, but then if you had something with cables in it or some special other twisted stitches and different techniques, it would look really pretty.
Oh, yeah. Love it. I can't stop. It's lying here right next to me. I can't stop petting.
Yeah. Too bad it's so hot outside.
Yeah. We were just talking about this before. We have a heat wave here in Germany again. It's in the beginning of 30s centigrade, and it's warm, people. But I get to wear I haven't worn this knitted top in the whole summer basically, so happy to wear that. Anyways, from my knitted wardrobe, onto your beautiful essay, because you did not only contribute Unity to issue 4, but you also wrote an essay called Embrace, and I'd love to read a little bit from it. It's about your personal journey towards body positivity and into size inclusive knitwear design, and I'd love to read a short paragraph from it and then talk a little bit about the different topics of the essay. Before we dive into that, I'm just going to share again, if you are watching this, I know you are, can you message me some questions if you get them? Because while I can't see us on YouTube Live, the live chat has died down again. Thank you, YouTube. One day it will work. I have faith. It's a big enough company. It should. Well, anyway, let's dive into your beautiful essay. I'm going to start reading from somewhere in the middle, a portion that when I read it, it just really hit home for me. This is why I chose this as well. How many of us look in the mirror at the beginning or end of the day and say to ourselves one or more or other versions of these statements? I'm so fat. I'm too skinny. I don't like my shoulders. My hips are too wide. My boobs are too small. My hair is too thin. My bum is non-existent. My nose is too pointy. This list can go on and on. Many of us have insecure or dysfunctional relationships with our bodies. Having a body positive relationship with your body is much like having a relationship with another human being. It is a lot of hard work and sometimes very complex. The toughest part is we can't break up with, run away from, or ghost our own body. We must live with it every day. We are in it together for the long haul. Why I connected so deeply with this was because around the time I read this the first time, it must have been in my pregnancy or shortly after I gave birth. And I've done a lot of work on myself mentally in the year or two leading up to my pregnancy, because I had a very dysfunctional relationship with my body. I didn't like it at all. And I was like, I don't want to bring a child into this world. It's going to look at their mother and see a woman who hates her body. And when I read this sentence that you wrote, it is a lot of hard work and sometimes very complex. Like, I just felt seen, because I think oftentimes the body positivity posts that we see online, the books that at least I read, they were diving a lot into what can you do to work on your sense of body positivity, on your sense of self. I was missing sometimes the acknowledgement that it's freaking hard to do this. So yeah, thank you for including that. It just came at the right time for me. And it's also a portion, I think, in the essay that I think a lot of people can connect with, even though they might not be familiar with the terms body positivity or size inclusivity, which is the other reason why I chose to read this portion out loud. This is what I want to dive in sort of next. For our viewers who are not familiar with the term body positivity, what does it mean, or what does it mean for you, Crystal?
Well, it can mean many different things. And for me personally, body positivity is a lot about what I wrote in that article. It's just learning to love and accept yourself for who your outside shell is. Who you are on the inside is really who you are. What you look like on the outside it's who you are, but it's not the most important thing. It's not the most important aspect of you. Your personality, your heart, your caringness, what you are due to do in your community, in your jobs, in the world, what your passions are. That's who you are. That's who we need to embrace the fullest. And the shows that we live in is it's a part of us, but it's not everything. It's not the end all be all. So being able to accept the way that you look, it's hard. I mean, I am nowhere near there. Every day get progress, but I'm also not always happy with where I am in life, in my body. And for me, it's a lot about health. I need to be more active. It doesn't mean I have to be super skinny or anything, but I just need to be more active so that I feel better every day. And it's always taking little baby steps. And so, as a whole, body positivity is just acknowledging and understanding that all people deserve to have a positive body image. And we live in a world, we've always lived in a world where businesses and society and now social media, cultures, they always have different views and shapes and labels placed on things. And what we need to recognize too is that body positivity isn't always just about a physical viewpoint or the size of a person. It also relates to like race, sexuality, your gender, disabilities too. So it's a very broad term, and I'm learning more all the time. I'm by no means an expert, but I definitely want to believe that I'm an advocate and out there to be supporting people and sharing information and sharing knowledge. And a lot of it too can also affect mental health. And that's a topic I really don't know much about, but I can say that this year of 2020 has been, I wrote this article last year, and it's been amazing to me reading it again this year. How on point it still was for me personally, because 2020 has been a weird year for all of us. Living through a pandemic, being stuck at home. I live by myself. I'm single. So I love that life, but this has been a struggle this year because I've been home by myself. I haven't been around friends very often. I'm not out being very active. So you're with yourself every single day, looking at you every single day. And it can play mind games with you a little bit. And so finding those positive pieces where you can find positivity in, a new outfit that you might buy online, and finally, after the package has been sitting in quarantine for 48 hours, you get to try on a new shirt, or, just little things, or buying a new book, or knitting a new, shawl or cowl, whatever it is that makes you happy or brings you that little positive piece has been, for me, and I think maybe for others this year, a real, you've needed those little boosts to help with your mental health, and still learning to appreciate your body for what it is and for who you are, feeling confident, and then also learning how to love yourself. And I talked about that too. I mean, you go through life doing things, and a lot of times you're doing it for other people. And it's very important, I've learned over the years, to take a step back and remember to do things for yourself too. It's, being caring and compassionate towards others is very important. And if you do that, it's so special to be able to do that. But at the same time, you also need to be caring and compassionate to yourself too. We need to love each other. We need to take those 10 minutes, pick up a book, and sit in the corner of the bathroom or your closet or wherever you need to find your quiet space, and read for 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. Or take a walk around the block if you can, or even just take the trash out to the end of the drive, or whatever it may be, to just have those few minutes by yourself. It really does a lot, for body positivity, for your mental health. I mean, there's everything kind of ties together, and like learning how to accept you for who you are. You can always make yourself better, whether it be something physical or mentally, but accept who you are today. And that's one of the things I wrote about too in this article, and I've read about in different places as well, is be willing to accept who you are right now, and knit for yourself for who you are today, crochet for yourself, sew for yourself, sew for who you are. Yes, in 30 days, I want to be 10 pounds less and a half a size smaller in the bust, but I may not get there. So accept that and just focus on who you are today. One thing I learned, I taught myself how to sew during this pandemic. I've always wanted to learn how to sew. And so thanks to YouTube, found a bunch of videos and figured that out. And through that process now, I've been teaching myself on how to sew some very simple garments. And sewing really tells you have to sew for what your body is today. And I've also learned how easy it is to rip it out if I need to make it smaller or make an adjustment. And the same goes for knitting too. Although ripping back knitting is really hard because it takes so much more time than sewing does. But just being able to knit, be willing to accept that, and you're going to be so much happier because you're going to wear what you have, and rather than it sit in the closet waiting for someday. So it's just something that it's hard, but if you can get there, I think you'll be a happy person with that, and happy with what your projects are.
Yeah, and just touching on that last point, knitting for who you are today, it's just such an amazing feeling if you open your closet or your wardrobe in the morning and you know that no matter what you pull out, you're going to love it and you're going to feel good in it. It's just something that I, after, like, Oren is about, like, he's turning a year from now. So my body has gone through so many changes over the last 2 years. First pregnancy, then giving birth, postpartum, now, breastfeeding up until a few weeks ago. And one of the things that inevitably made me, that I told myself that I would do, and thankfully I followed through with it. I was like, I'm not going to force myself trying to fit in those pre-baby jeans or stuff, because my body has carried a child and it's had effects. It's just physical effects. Right. It does things to your body, right? And so why do I place this expectation on myself? Instead, I chose to just invest a little bit of money, not a ton, but every few months I would just buy myself a couple of new t-shirts or maybe a new pair of pants, something that just fit at that point in time. And that made me feel good. And it was the best thing, because I could just pull things out of my wardrobe and I could put them on and I would feel amazing. And I think the same, like, everyone deserves that feeling. And especially with knitting, you put in so much time and so much effort, and also honestly so much yarn if you're knitting a sweater or any type of larger project. You want to love what you're knitting, and I don't think you're going to love it when you don't feel good wearing it, or you're pulling it out of your closet and you're like, oh, but really I should go for a run before I put the sweater on, because
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No,
It just
that's
takes
true.
it takes so much time. I wanted to touch on something else that you said before, this the mental health aspect, and also the aspect of, you deserve to love your body. One of the things when I started reading more about body positivity a few years ago that really struck a chord with me was, if you imagine, and just for anyone out there who's interested in sort of like maybe taking the first steps towards having a more positive body image or a more positive, attitude towards their body, what helped me a lot was imagining the way that I would talk to myself about my body, very similar to what you wrote in your article. My hips are too wide, my boots are too small. And imagine you don't talk like that to yourself, but you talk like that to a close friend. Yeah, we don't look at each other and see like, ooh, like your boobs are really small, right? Like, let alone say that. It's not, like we're being so hard on ourselves and on our own bodies. And I found that this perspective of imagine you would say exactly what you're saying to yourself in your mind right now to a friend, would just help me gain a little bit of distance and put that into perspective, the way that I was talking to myself about my own body.
Yeah. No, that's a great point and a great way to look at that. And it's so true. I mean, we would never say something like that to our friends. We always see their beauty, never see the flaws. And so, if you can turn that onto yourself, that's really, really important, and will go a long way. To finding that comfort level.
You already touched a little bit upon sort of how you see the relationship between body positivity and knitting. Let's talk a little bit about body positivity and size inclusivity for knitwear design, especially. How does both like body positivity and size inclusivity relate to knitwear design? How do you think about that?
Well, I'll relate it to when I'm designing something. So, one, I feel like everybody can look good in many things. We all have our own opinions on what we would look good and what we wouldn't look good in. But body positivity is all about accepting who you are and wearing what you love, or it's an aspect of that. And so if you love a crop sweater, wear a crop sweater.
Mm.
Show it off. You know, we can, as we've seen in knitting today and through Instagram and the different patterns that have come out, so many different body types can wear the same types of things, and they just style them a little bit differently, and they all look fabulous. When I'm thinking about size inclusivity, that's a learning experience every day when I'm working on a garment, or even with a shawl too, because all of us are shaped differently. I have lots of conversations with friends who are of all different body um, types, whether they're tall or short or um, wide or fat or really skinny. I mean, our bodies are all so different. And how a garment fits on your body is completely different too.
Mm.
So some people use the idea that, well, if I normally can grade up to like a size XL, well, then I'll go up all the other sizes and I'll just use a math equation and make everything bigger. Well, then you have that are hanging off your shoulders, or sleeves that are too long, or necks that are down to your chest, and that's not what it is. It's learning and understanding, recognizing how bodies are similar but also different, and being able to take that information and apply it to your garment design. And to me, size inclusivity is making sure that my garments, when I design a garment, that it'll fit somebody all the way up to a size 70-inch bust, and fit them proportionately too. Um, Even if you do have that large of a bust, it doesn't mean your neck is that much larger too, or your head is that much larger. I mean, a lot of those different aspects or characteristics of your body are very similar, and they only change they could change in less than an inch, depending on the different sizes or the different measurements that we're looking at. So I always want to focus on having a larger number of sizes and options, but then also the ability to be able to customize the fit. So to me, size inclusivity is also a little bit of customization, but making it accessible and for people of all knitting levels too. So whether that be adjusting your length, your bust area, whether you need vertical or horizontal bust darts, so that like, if you're wearing a crop sweater, you can wear the crop sweater and knit it to how the pattern's written, and not have to worry about it rising up above your bust area. So all of a sudden your whole stomach is hanging out, or the sweater ends just below your bra line. So having those little tips and techniques, and biceps, that's another area too. People's arms are very different. You can have a very large bust but small arms, or a very small bust and larger arms. And to be able to have information within a pattern to help you customize and to fit that appropriately is important. And it does take a little bit of extra work on the designer's part, and whatever, if they're working with a grading expert or a tech editor, but it's worth it as you're open up your doors to be able to allow more people to knit your patterns, and you're being inclusive of as many people as you possibly can. I don't know if any pattern will ultimately fit everybody, but to be able to offer some options so that even if the maker comes to the designer and asks a few questions, there may be an opportunity to figure something out within the recipes that are in there to find the right fit for that person, depending on their body type. One thing that I've also learned from friends of mine too that have gone through like breast cancer, there's, depending on the type of cancer that they had, and if they had to have a mastectomy or lymph nodes removed, their body shape changes with that. And so certain sweaters and certain styles fit them better, and they could probably wear other styles if that was, taken into account as a thought point of how to style something. So I wrote in the article too a little piece, a little note to designers, to all of us
Yeah.
that are, current designers or aspiring designers, to just not be afraid to venture out. Like, do your best to be inclusive to as many
Mm.
sizes. It takes a little bit of learning, but it's not impossible. I remember when a lot of these hard conversations were beginning and a lot of designers were saying, well, I just don't know how to do it. Well, not everybody does, but it's like, how did you learn how to design? We all learned, we all
Yeah.
practiced. So don't be afraid. And to, yarn companies and other larger designers and other people in the industry, don't be afraid to show two styles of a sweater, for example. Maybe you want to show it on more straight sizes, that small to large, extra large, and then also show it on a plus size person, someone who might be considered a 2 or a 3X. So broaden that range of visibility so that you're also open your opportunities and showcasing other sizes, but then letting people say, hey, we can knit this sweater too, or we can knit this shawl too. It's gonna wrap around us. One thing I didn't realize when I first started knitting shawls was how small they are for someone who might be a plus size person.
Mm.
Because on a straight size person, a beautiful triangular shawl might wrap around a couple times and it's nice and cozy. Well, on me, it can barely fit around. I'm very large busted,
Mm.
and it just, and it's like, well, I have to design two sizes of shawls so that there's one that fits me, but then another one that is the
Yeah.
more common options. So everybody would have two different options to choose from. But but yeah, I think it's just opening up, be open to those possibilities. Don't be closed to saying, nope, this is what I do. We should always be evolving and changing in everything that we do, to always learn more. And if we can be more inclusive, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I love um, how you use the shawl design as an example, because I think a lot of designers who, maybe not so much now anymore, but at the beginning of the size inclusivity discussion last year, were like, I have no idea. I'm going to get to that argument in a moment, but who said, I have no idea what to do. If you can design a triangular shawl, you can design a triangular shawl that's bigger or smaller. There's no
Mm-hmm.
excuse. You can do it, right? It's just understanding that this is something that is also size inclusive. It's not just about garment grading. So I think that's it's a fabulous point. Um, I'm just going to read the little portion that you quoted out, because I think there are a couple of more aspects in there that I think are also really, or at least sort of additions to the size inclusivity discussion. So you wrote, to all of us designers and aspiring designers, any person of any size can look fantastic in anything. Accept all body shapes and sizes as beautiful. Showcase your designs on all body shapes. Make a conscious effort to design for a variety of silhouettes. Accept and understand designing for all body shapes does not mean you just size everything up or down. It is really a matter of adjusting for proportions. I also love that variety of silhouettes idea. Different people have different preferences, and I think that silhouette point goes hand in hand with showcasing your design on different body types. And something specific that I'm thinking about is ease preference, because you can have, you can want to wear that cropped sweater super close fitting to your body, or if you're like me, you prefer something with a lot more positive ease, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I would maybe knit a size XL for myself and my bust circumference to get the fit that I want. A different person with exactly the same, body proportions and bust circumference who would prefer a closed fit would maybe knit a size M. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things where a few knitwear designers have started to showcase exactly that. I think Jacqueline, I'm always stumbling over her name, Cheeselect. She's doing this beautifully with some of her patterns where she uses the same sample and showcases it on different bodies. And I think this just drives home the point that knitwear design, if you have a specific size written in your pattern, it's not like fast fashion, it's like, it's a suggestion. It doesn't mean because you're always going out and buying a size M or a size L or a size 3X, this is the same size that you should, quote unquote, knit for that pattern, right? And I find this so interesting in the entire discussion because the knitting, I think why a lot of us knit is because we want clothes that make us feel good, that sit the way that we want them to sit, right? And not, like not have to go to the store and buy something that maybe just doesn't make us feel good. And so I think, yeah, that's just really something that people, I don't know where I'm going with this, honestly.
Yeah. Well, but when you go by off the rack, it may fit you or it may not. It never quite, very rarely does it fit you perfectly. There are a few body types that these people are blessed with the exact same body type that fast fashion uses to design the clothes they're making. They look amazing and they fit those body types perfectly. But then like with I love Jackie too. I was fortunate to take a class with her not too long ago, and she's so smart in her designing and the way how she designs it. And yeah, the way how she designs too is also providing those suggestions and the recipes to make it. And one important thing that if designers can do this is include the schematics, include all the measurements, as many measurements as you can, because that, like for you, Hannah-Lisa, you want to be able to make something that has more ease, but you still need to be able to know key measurements in case you need to adjust the sleeves a little bit or adjust the waist or certain things to make sure you get that perfect fit. And like you said, we're knitting our own wardrobes because we want that perfect fit. We want it to be happy. We want it to fit our bodies. And the more as designers the more information we can provide, the better chance or opportunity that the results that the makers are going to get in the end is going to be pretty darn close or exactly what they're dreaming of or looking for.
Yeah. Reading a book when I was designing we talked about this before, I was designing a little cardigan for our upcoming baby collection. When you said, customization options and recipes included in patterns, I think this is really something where knitting has maybe even taken a step backwards, like over the last maybe like 5, 6, 10 years, basically ever since maybe also before, but basically ever since people started putting out PDF patterns and people started buying PDF patterns, it's sort of like to have these stitch counts, you do this kind of thing. You're following it to a T without a lot of customization options, which I feel are slowly coming back, which is great. But I found it so interesting. I was reading this, Knitting from the Top, Barbara Giwaka, which is from, let me just look it up, 90s or something. Original copyright, 1972. Yeah. It's amazing. And it has all of the information that you need to knit all sorts of different top-down sweaters, pullovers, cardigans, what have you, dresses. And I was thinking when I was reading this, if designers were to include some of that information, like, hey, the sleeve is about like a third of this, and you know, like all of those things that would make it so much easier for people to customize it. And I think we're slowly seeing this a little bit more. And I'm kind of hoping that we can include more of that as well in our publications, because I was just struck by this. Like, we're having this like this discussion about size inclusivity. We've had it for 2 years now. All of that information is out there. No designer has an excuse not to provide customization options, as you said, not to write their patterns in a more recipe style way, not even for grading, because those resources are out there. Yeah, like you can Google it, you can get a tech editor, you can get a grading expert to work with you on this. People like Claire Mountain Manipot, who's done a lot of fabulous work around knitwear design, are publishing their own sizing sheets, which can help you wrap your head around how body proportions work versus just scaling it up on an equation basis. So there's really no excuse.
Yeah, it's you still gotta, there's always gonna be things you're learning, but yeah, the tools are there to get started with it. And it's funny, I just started knitting 10 years ago, so to have a book back from the 1970s, it would be interesting to go find a lot of those older books to see how did we evolve to this world where it was, very simple, everybody follow exactly what a designer is telling you to do, and get away from that. Well, here's this option, here's that option. It probably did make it a little bit more accessible by having the straight pattern, follow these instructions, because those who may not have, a lot of times it can be hard to think in that abstract way too. A lot of people do also look for, I need you to tell me exactly what to do. So maybe if there's a way we can find a balance between the two together to make it inclusive, so that there's the recipe to customize, but then also if you need the exact instructions, that's here too. I don't know what that looks like, but being able to bring it all together. And it's hard. You want to be, as a designer, at least for myself, I want to be everything to everybody as much as I can, but you also can't. I mean, this is not my full-time job. It likely never will be. I have another business, and this is what I do in the fun for my other creative side of things. And so it's like you have to be comfortable with yourself and knowing what your limits are and what you can do. But it's so much you can do, and you just I'm one of those people that I want to do it all. So but gotta rope it in.
We have to accept that there's only 24 hours in a day. I know. I want to get on to our show and tell, but I want to share one last thought on what you said. How did we get to this point where we have these patterns written in this way? In addition to having this awesome book from the 70s, I also recently sort of semi-inherited a whole stack of basically crafts or like knitting and sewing books from my mother-in-law, who didn't have space for them anymore, and they were from the 70s and 80s. And it also got me thinking about what you just said. It has so many amazing knitting patterns, especially the 80s. People in the 80s with knitting stuff, they were really good. Like the shapes are, but there's a lot of really good intarsia stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But all of those patterns are written, well, they're in German, and in German, knitting patterns have always been not line by line, not the way that, especially English language patterns are written these days, but it's always been super short, where I would have like a full page of written instructions in English. If I were to translate this into German, it would be like this short, basically. I think one part why we have gotten away from this and more towards the line by line, do this, do that instruction is also because we don't necessarily inherit or learn those skills anymore because someone is showing them to us, you know, like my mother learned to knit from her mother. Just a whole different type of learning and of showing and of understanding the construction of something that you're knitting. She kind of showed me, and then I didn't knit for 20 years, and then there was YouTube, right? So I think because we have this disconnect, we're learning it again, you know, from other resources. We're maybe not as confident, or I know I wasn't as confident of knitter for the first 5-6 years that I was knitting.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's such a good point. It was such a way of life, and you pass it down from family generation to generation, and it's almost, in some cases, it skipped generations or it just stopped. And that's a really, I think you hit the nail on the head there with that. You were taught by watching your grandmothers and aunts and cousins and mothers and all of that knit for all these years, and that's really gone by. In some families, it's gone by the wayside. So
yeah. We have a question for you, Crystal.
Okay.
Since you started sewing, have you found that this influenced your knitwear design?
Yes, it has. I'm still a big newbie sewist, but it definitely has, because I've thought more about the fit and how, when you're sewing, cutting out your pieces and that, and sewing your pieces together, and figuring out those the fits, especially around like your waist and your neck and your arms and that. That's definitely projecting into my knitwear. I have some new sweaters that I just designed that have taken on some new life because of different things that I've learned and how I want them to fit better. Yeah.
I love it. I'm excited to see those. It's also an excellent segue into our show and tell. What do you have on your needles right now, or something that you recently finished? Anything that you'd like to sew?
So, well, I have a couple different things right now. So we were talking about this earlier. This is a new shawl that I'm working on right now. This is, if you can kind of see some of the details in here. And it's lots of texture, some brioche, some little eyelets and slip stitches, and then also garters. So great for a beginner. I know brioche can sometimes sound scary to people, but
it's not, people. Brioche is great.
It's great, especially, and it's really easy with one color too, compared to color. You're just learning and doing it in the flat as well. But it's nothing to be afraid of. It's, once you get it going, it's very easy. But that is the piece to a whole series of shawls I've been working on. This is a large triangular wrap, and then this here is a rectangular wrap, which is basically like a huge blanket, and then a little shawlette that goes with that too, so something a little bit smaller as well. But these will be coming out later this month, and then I'm also going to be doing a knit along with the series too. This is a 100% pandemic design. I started hanging out with some of my friends out in their yards and bringing our lawn chairs, and so they're called the Eckert Street shawls, which was the neighborhood street that we would all hang out on 6 to 10 feet apart, bringing our own dinner and bottles of wine and chatting with each other. Back in April or May, actually, I think is when we finally ventured outside a little bit. And then today I actually also released a new pattern too. It's a crescent-shaped shawl, and this is one of the samples right here. Again, very simple. Thank you. Garter and some eyelets, and then I did a knit on edge, which has a lace motif in it.
Mm.
So, and this has 3 different sizes. So it goes up to 116-inch wingspan.
Wow.
So it gives everybody a lot of different options. And then this is another version of it. My friend Jamie knit a sample for me, so that we had a couple different options. But if no one's ever done a knit on edge before, it's really fun. When you finish your shawl, you then cast on some additional stitches. Right at the end, you do a cable cast on, and then you'll just knit along the edge of your shawl, and that last stitch that of your what you casted on and your shawl, you'll either knit them together or purl them together to create this whole effect that goes all around it. So this is called the Whisper Shawl. And I also have some sweaters started, but they're just like cast on, so they're not quite ready to be shared with just yet, but they'll be showing up on Instagram here pretty soon.
Nice. Oh, those are
So,
beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing those with us. So Claire has a message for you. Claire wants the yellow shawl.
That is my favorite. It turned out I dropped it on the floor now, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful color. My local yarn shop carries the Fiber Co. Yarn, and I knit all the shawls out of Cumbria fingering, and that's the buttermere color, which is just to die for.
It is. I mean, I love all the Fiber Co. Yarns. We've done a lot of designs with them, and inevitably we tend to gravitate to buttermere because it's a color both Claire and I really, really like. It's just beautiful. And I also loved the 2 samples that you showed for the Whisper shawl. I'm always fascinated by how you can combine colors, and I think with the samples, where you switch the kind of body color and border color, it's a totally different look almost. I love it. That I've never done a knitted on border. I'll have to do something with a knitted on border. Like maybe that's gonna be it.
It's fun. Yeah, I did my first one last year, and I was like, "This is amazing." There's some really cool things you can do with that. So it's neat. It adds a whole new element to any piece. It could even be on a sweater or cardigan too. So
yeah. Alrighty. I think we've talked for a little more than an hour already. So lovely watching. If you have any more questions, now's the time to send them over because we're going to be wrapping it up soon. Before we do that, where can people find you, Crystal? So you just mentioned keeping an eye on Instagram. You're Millie's Knit Designs there, aren't you?
Yes. Yep. On Instagram, Millie's Knit Designs. And Millie's is plural and Designs is plural. I'm also on Facebook, same Millie's Knit Designs. And then I have my own website too. So I post some blog posts periodically out there. You can also sign up for my newsletter where you'll get the latest updates for releases, some special discounts, giveaways, different things that are going on. And that's milliesknits.com. I also have a shop on there too, so you can purchase my patterns there, PDF copies, and there's also and you can. It's an alternative to Ravelry. You can also find my patterns on Ravelry and Love Crafts as well. And all those links are, if you're on Instagram, they are right there in my bio. And then if you go to my website, there's also links there too, if needed. But yeah, I wanted to be able to think they're optional, offered in as many platforms as I possibly can so that it makes it accessible for the majority of people.
Very thoughtful. I'll also include all of those links in the down bar below, so this video will be available for you watching, and all of those links will be there for people to see and click on. Wonderful. I don't think we have any more questions coming in. I'm keeping an eye on my phone here. Thank you so much, Crystal,
Okay.
for joining me.
Thank
It was
you.
such a pleasure. Thank you also for sharing your beautiful design with us in issue 4 and sharing your amazing words. Um, I can't thank you enough. It was such a pleasure to work with you, and it was such a pleasure to get to chat with you here live on YouTube. I loved it.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be included in issue 4 with all the other amazing designers and writers and artists too. It's was very, very special and very exciting, and great to work with both Claire and you. And I love to be able to finally have a face-to-face conversation. We've
I
had email
know.
chats and Instagram chats for a
Yeah.
long, long while. So
We'll
this has
see
been
what the
fun. Thank you so much.
yeah. It was such a
Yeah.
pleasure. We'll see what the next year brings. This year was actually supposed to be my Rhinebeck year. Now we all know that this did not happen.
Right.
Next year, hopefully. Let's see how the next few
year.
months go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Hopefully. I think we're all ready for it.
Yeah.
So great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Everyone out there, have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you again here in 2 weeks. Next week, we're taking a little break because we're celebrating our little one's birthday. And then in 2 weeks, I'll be back here at same day, same time, with Ash Albert, who's designed a shawl for issue 4 and also contributed to an essay. Thank you so much, Crystal, for joining me. Everyone, go check out Crystal's beautiful designs. Give her a new whisper shawl a little bit or a lot bit of love, and follow her on Instagram. Thank you so much, Crystal. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.